do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby. We should have an exciting show today. Hopefully we'll have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. And if you, the listening audience, would love to get in contact with the show, do this. Dial 516-453-9921. And when you hit that, when you call that number, press the number 1 button, and I'm told that if Mr. Fuller is not speaking, that you will go to the head of the line, and then I will be able to see your name, and then call you out, and then you can ask your questions. I would ask, though, that when you do ask your questions, be mindful that there are other people that want to get on, so do not write a novel or anything like that. You know, get to your point so that Mr. Fuller can answer your questions and make it clear. And then if there's another question that you have to ask, make sure that you ask them one at a time and allow Mr. Fuller time to address that. You can also address me by going to my Gmail account, which is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. And if I have time, I will read them. If I do not read them today, it will go into rotation, and your question will be read. And I would ask on that, please do not write me a novel. There are some that have asked multiple questions, maybe 7 or 8 questions, and obviously I can't answer or have Mr. Fuller answer those all at one time. I'll have to segment them out. But I would like to ask that you be, again, mindful of your brother or sister and ask the most pertinent questions, like that, and give Mr. Fuller a chance to answer that, in a manner in which you can understand. That will be great. So push that number 1 button when you get it, and you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. Okay, Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, now, Mr. Fuller, for those of you who don't know, because we do get listeners all the time, he is the author of this book here, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And normally we go right into questions right away, but Mr. Fuller, I decided to throw a change up in here. We usually do this at the 45-minute mark of the hour, but today we're going to start off by talking about this book. I understand before we got on this morning that the book is doing well. I understand that the shelves are fully stocked and everybody can get the book. It has gone all over the world. There are many places, and if you go to producejustice.com, there is a list, I believe, of the places where the book can be ordered, and people want that. But, Mr. Fuller, I would like to start off before I get into the questions about this book. What is this codified book all about?
It's about solving problems, and the book specifically is about trying to solve the race problem. That wasn't what I set out to do initially. But as I began to see how big the race problem was and how pervasive it was and how powerful it was as the most powerful concept, among the people of the planet. I concluded that. I said, well, it makes sense that everybody's shoulder should be to the wheel on this. That this should be the number one priority of everybody on the planet, to get rid of racism, because someone decided to divide people politically and religiously into color categories, and not only just divide them in color categories because it's obvious that people are of different colors, but to make an institution out of it and to make a governmental system out of it, a world government. And it turned out to be the most powerful idea, political and religious idea, that the world has ever seen. And once I realized that, or I think I've realized it, I think that's the truth. That's number one. Because I asked myself, I said, Fuller, you're telling yourself this, but is it true? Is this concept called racism or white supremacy more powerful than all of the religions, or any one religion, or all of the religions put together? More powerful than any political concept standing on its own, what people call political concepts, capitalism, communism, socialism, royalism. Is it more powerful than that? And I thought about it over a period of time, and I said, it seems obvious that yes. And that to me is absurd. Somebody thought of an idea of you do all the world's business on the basis of what color somebody is. All of the world's business in all areas of activity, economics. Okay, we're going to, set up an economic system here. Okay, let's put it on a color basis. Everything's got to be on a color basis. Education. Well, let's farm out some education, but you can't let everybody know everything. So how are we going to do this now? Which people are going to know the most and be taught the most and be at the front of the line when it comes to learning things that need to be learned to help out everybody on the planet? Well, let's put it on a color basis, too. Throw that into the hopper, right along with everything else. Entertainment. Well, let's segment out entertainment so that any constructive entertainment is going to be for people who are classified as white. And non-constructive entertainment will be primarily for people classified as non-white. Just entertainment is just a way to have fun. So all the ways to have fun, for the most part, we're going to make sure that it's not anything that will help build up the people who have color in their skin. It will make them weaker, more weak-minded, have them just running around doing a little of this and a little of that. But at the end of the day, they will not have gained anything from it, and they will have lost quite a bit. So then they went through all the areas, other areas of activity, entertainment, labor, divide labor up based on color lines. You're going to have some real, what we call real hard labor, where people don't use their minds, they just use their bodies, and you wear their bodies out and their minds along with it. So we'll segment that out to the people who have color in their skin. And the people who will be telling them what to do will have less color. People called white people. That'll be the category. And we'll call it white supremacy. And they did that, labor, law, politics, which means interaction between people in general. That's what politics is. And religion. Well, make sure that all the religions, major ones, minor ones, tribal religions, but for sure all of the major religions will be on a color basis. And all of the heroes in every religion will draw pictures and make sure that the leaders in all of the religion are people who are colorless, people who have white skins for the most part. And we'll keep it that way as much as we can, or light skins. And Then in sex, we'll dominate every bit of that. We'll go among people regardless of what their sexual practices are. We'll steer it in such a way that it's going to serve the system of white supremacy. We'll do that by engaging in it with them and steer it the way we want it to go. They won't even know what we're doing. And in war, well, the whole thing will be war against people of color. Dominate and mistreat them. That will be the way that we have the three things that all people want, all creatures want. Bats, birds, squirrels. The three things that all creatures in the known universe want. And that is fun, glory, and material comfort. So we will have our fun based on mistreating people of color. And we'll get our glory from the same thing. Glory just means self-esteem. People feeling good about yourself and other people, quote, unquote, feeling good about you. We'll put that on a color basis. Oh, yeah, let's gather up all the, glory that we possibly can. I feel good about myself. Why? Because I'm a white person. And everything that I say is always right. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Okay? I'm royal. I'm born royal. And everybody who is black, brown, red, yellow, beige, tan, who has color in his or her skin, that's something awful. That's something to be despised. That's something that you kick around. And have fun and glory and figure out ways to make profit out of it. How can you lose? It's a grand idea.
Yes, sir.
So, in essence, that's what the book is about, how to get rid of that system on an individual basis, how to start working on it, because it never should have been in the first place, and replace it with something better. And
yes,
that
sir.
something better would be this system of justice, which means guaranteeing that no one is mistreated, regardless of who they are, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Constructive
regardless
help.
of who that is. And that's what this book is about, how to go about doing that.
Okay.
First of all, by recognizing how it works. And then once you figure out how something works, you can deal with it.
Yes, sir. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to the phone lines here. Mark, you're up with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Go ahead.
Mr. Fuller, I have two questions.
Yes.
Do you have any databases, or not database, but your old speeches or anything like that? Are those available?
If people can track them down, I don't have them. Because I was usually speaking somewhere, sometimes at schools or colleges or at forums, community centers and things like that. And different people recorded at that time. But most of the recordings of mine that in a sort of an orchestrated manner in one place was with the Cress-Welsing Institute. But they are not available officially, those recordings. That's Dr. Frances Cress-Welsing here in Washington, D.C. And every now and then I would be a guest speaker at her institute because she wants people to understand where she had got a lot of her ideas from. And so people were asking for me, so I would go there and speak. But though that's where the, Fisk University and places like that, that's where most of the recordings would be. I don't have a lot. But since then, in the last, I'll say 10 years, I have been recording every week, just like or rather presenting every week, just like I'm doing now. Roughly about 8 to 10 years, I think I've been doing that every Wednesday and now every Tuesday on ProduceJusticeHere.com. But lots of people tell me that they have the recordings because they recorded it off the radio and, like that. They say that they have plenty of my recordings. And so they're available somewhere.
Okay. My second question, I want to start it off with a statement. It was Dr. Amos Wilson who said that the definition of power is to define someone's reality and have them accept that reality as if it were their own. And Mr. Fuller, you say many times that no matter what a white supremacist calls themselves, a Jew or whatever, they're really white supremacists. There's nothing else, no matter what they call themselves. That's their operating system. So my question is, if we as black people define ourselves with the operating system of the white supremacist construct, no matter what codes we input into that system, nothing will happen to go against that system as long as we have that white supremacist operating system. I just want to know your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, you either have the system of white supremacy or you don't. But it's just like any other system of government. Governments, you just look at it and you see how it's put together, and you say, well, this is not put together correctly, and it's not serving people in the way that people should be served, and so let's change it. So it's just like anything that you change, like changing a tire on a car. You just look at it and see if it's working the way it ought to, and if not, you get one that will work. People do that all the time. You correct errors. Racism is an error. So you just correct an error. In plumbing, in electricity, you say we have an error here. The lights keep going off. So somebody go down in the basement and check that out that knows about electricity. So somebody will go down and check it out, and they say, sure, yeah, you got water all over these wires, and the wires are exposed. And so then some of them are not even connected and whatnot. Let's get this thing in order. So you do it. Once you figure out what the problem is. Plumbing problems, it's no different. You just do it. Figure out what the problem is and then say, okay, now, hey, enough of this. Okay? So let's do this and this and this, and then make it the way it ought to be. You take things the way that they are, if they are not the way they should be, and make them the way they ought to be. Every person who is somewhere right now cooking bread knows that. It's a simple formula. It's not a head scratcher. You just say, well, is this the way it ought to be? That's the question. What you all are doing, is this the way it should be? And somebody says, well, no. Well, then let's make it the way it should be. How about that? Well, yeah. And if they say, well, no, I like it the way it is, even though it's not the way it ought to be, then you say, okay, well, then we have a problem here. That, we're going to have to get an understanding about this right out the gate. I'm pleased that you made it that clear. That this is not the way it ought to be, but this is the way you want it to be, even though that's the way it shouldn't be. So we're gonna, we're in conflict. We are, in conflict right now. And so let's try to resolve this conflict one way or another. And that's all it comes down to. It's not complicated.
Yes, sir.
People look at racism and say, oh, well, it's so complicated. No, it isn't. It's about mistreatment of people. You stop people from being mistreated. That's it. Nothing. There's no in between.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Thank you again, Mark, for your call. Before I get to David on the call, Mr. Fuller, you mentioned Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. I have just been informed by Mr. George Thompson that tomorrow, Wednesday, March the 18th, would have been Dr. Welsing's 85th birthday tomorrow, 85, and you have had meetings with her and shared platforms with her. But we just want to make that particular announcement because she was also in the struggle. So, yeah, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. All righty. Mark, you're up next with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question? Oh, excuse me, David. I'm sorry. Excuse me, David. I apologize. David, what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Well, I had a statement first. I want to say that I'm very appreciative of the work that Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and the work of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing put together for the victims of white supremacy in totality, because the information for the what and the why is very important for us, I believe. So I had two questions, and last week I had sent in an email talking about our Claudius and it being blocked on YouTube, and Mr. Neely Fuller never got around to the second part of the email, and I wanted him to explain how the diabolical ways of the white supremacists in that time showed their murderous actions, deceit, what I'm saying, as far as the lessons that we could learn from the I, Claudius movie, if he doesn't mind.
Yes, all the lessons of the seeds of racism are there. It's about the Roman Empire. So actually racism is based on the principles of, you might, if you want to use that, and you can, of the Roman Empire. If you study the way the Roman Empire operated, it's basically the same thing. Racism is, the Roman Empire was about royalty, the royal families, emperors, and empresses, and people who lived in castles, you might say. And then later on, in England they had it, and they still have it, what you call royalty, people who can do no wrong, really. That's the way it was in ancient times. And so if you're the emperor, you're always right about everything. The emperor can order somebody killed by the hundreds, and you go out and kill them. Why? Because the emperor has to be obeyed. Whatever the emperor says goes. The emperor is always right. Now, if you don't like what the emperor is doing, get another emperor. But as long as you got an emperor, you go by what the emperor says. And so the system of racism was set up on that same royalist principle that, hey, if you're white, you're right. Okay? And that's a wonderful idea. To tell a white person born into a world of struggle and difficulties and whatnot, and you tell them, well, hey, you happen to have been born white, and that's fortunate for you. And the person might ask, well, why is that fortunate for me to be born white? They say, because here, the way the world is set up now that you've been born in hasn't always been that way, but it's that way now that you run to the head of the line in everything, all of the areas of activity. And the white person, each and every white person learns that. Well, what are you talking about? That say, yeah, everything is set up on a color basis before you were born. So it's very fortunate you were born white and not black. All right, because there's a lot of benefits for being born white. Now, how about that, Ronnie? Don't you like that idea? Well, yeah, everybody likes benefits. So, what do I do? Well, you just act like you're in charge of everything, and that people have to do what you say if they have color in their skin. And if you want to kill them and all like that, that's all right. And drag them behind a truck, that's all right. We'll back you up. Everything is all set up in place. Well, I don't necessarily want to do all those things, but, hey, it sounds like a pretty good deal. considering the alternative, just be thrown in there in the hopper with, everybody else in the big struggle and what you call life. If I'm being given special privileges from birth, if I'm royal, in answer to the question about the I, Claudius series, if I'm royal, I'm right, okay? But then when you tell people that, people become corrupt. I mean, it's not just that they become, have privileges and all like that, but they get to the place where they do all sorts of things, start messing with nature and everything. And that's what was going on in the Roman Empire. I mean, I think Caligula sent his army to fight the god Neptune. That's the god of the sea. I mean, in his, in their minds. I mean, so he wanted his soldiers to go out and fight the gods of the sea. Well, the soldiers got to the ocean and didn't know how to go about fighting the ocean. So they gathered up a whole bunch of what? Seashells, and brought them back to the Emperor Caligula. And he said, oh, yeah, now, hey, I took all the treasures away from Neptune, and you won't be messing with me again. I got all the seashells. Right. That type of thinking. See, corrupt type of thinking breeds corrupt types of thinking. And the people of this planet, even with all the modern conveniences, because the system of white supremacy produces material things like no other system ever has. But the relationships between people is absolutely awful. I mean, it is terrible. I mean, you can't even call this mess that we got relationships.
Right. I got a second question. I learned of a documentary called Everything Rich Man's Trick on YouTube, and somebody else said that it was on Netflix, but it exposed the intricate plot that was set forth to kill JFK in Dallas, Texas, and it explained how everybody come together. It was 20 rich people and mafia members and George H. Bush and all these people, and the young man that was talking on the documentary, he just exposed it all. And I just wanted to know from Mr. Neely Fuller, at the end of the documentary, it said what I think is a profound question. It said, what kind of society kills its best men? And I wanted to know from Neely Fuller, what kind of society kills its best men?
Yeah, that type of society. I mean, not only that type of society kills everything that in order to have fun, glory, and material comfort, and just sometimes that main thing, fun. Chase somebody down and kill them. Why? That's fun. That's why the white supremacist philosophy is all about weapons. Now, we have a crisis going on all over the world now about restoring people to health or trying to maintain what little bit of health people have. It's called a virus. Now people are kind of coming together because they're hitting everybody. Now, that should continue. That should be the mentality all the time, rather than trying to figure out a way all the time to glorify killing. So in the system of white supremacy, murder is glorified. Most books are about murder. Young children, who haven't been taught anything, go to school and learn about what? How to become a knight. Well, knights don't do anything. They don't do any farming. They're not doctors. They don't do anything constructive but get on a horse and ride up and down the road chopping people's heads off. And then they are honored for doing so. Now, you're going to teach a young person that type of thinking? But that's what you get in the system of white supremacy. And young girls are taught, hey, get me a white knight on a white horse in shining armor. And I'll sit here by the window and pretty myself up and hope that one comes by and knocks on my door.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. This is what I'm going to have to do. I'll have to take a break here. So thank you for your call. Let's do this. The Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host. That's what you've been listening to. And to get in contact with the show, you can call 516-453-9921, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, Bobby, @gmail.com. Now, if you use that, because of the high volume of calls that we are receiving on today's program, I'm probably not going to get a chance to read your Gmail, so you would be best to call. But there are quite a few calls ahead of you, so I just need you to be aware of that. Again, you're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm your co-host, Mr. Bobby. 516-453-9921 or the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby @gmail.com. Now, let me ask you this. Because of the volume of calls that we are receiving, I'm going to ask you, please, ma'am, please, sir, that you restrict your call to one question so that we can get everybody on. I know you may have a lot of questions. Usually somebody says they have a question, and then they end up asking two questions, and Mr. Fuller will answer those, and he will answer them thoroughly. But because of the volume of call today, select the one question that you have, and then ask that question. I ask that, please, ma'am, please, sir. All righty. Who's next on here? Okay, Jamal, you're next here. With Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Yes, the question is, Mr. Fuller, you have a list of movies that you recommend. I don't believe you have a list of TV shows or sitcoms that you recommend. Would you say that sitcoms like Amos and Andy don't have many lessons in it for us to learn?
It sounds like there's a loose connection. Repeat that.
Yes. You have a list of movies that you recommend. I don't believe you have a list of TV shows or sitcoms that you recommend. Would you say sitcoms like Amos and Andy don't have many lessons in them for us to learn?
Oh, no, I don't have that. I just had a list and the list that I made up of about 40 movies, and I'll put it up on my website at some time. I've been saying that for about 5 years. I haven't gotten around to it. I have so many other things on my plate. But I say that anything that you look at on television, look for the lessons. And if you're not getting anything out of it that you can use of constructive value, see, that should always be the question when you're looking at anything, whether it's in a museum or a so-called sitcom, or a story on television. Look and see what is the lesson here that I can take. I can take when I turn this. Should be doing that. Every book that you read should be doing that. Otherwise, then it should be considered a waste of your time. Whatever it is. If you want to get something out of it that has to do with a lesson that you can actually use, when you turn that off, you need to turn to something else. So that's in everything that's going on around you all the time. It's not Neely Fuller's list. It's the entire universe. The universe is a list, a very long list. Millions of things going on around you all the time. Everything that you see going on out there in the streets and whatnot. Just stand back and take a long look and say, now, what I'm looking at right now, what those people are doing over there, is that constructive or non-constructive? Because every move that every creature makes is going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. And I'm talking about not just people, but every creature. The squirrels you see running up and down the trunk of the tree. Just take a look at the squirrels and say, now, are they having a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect? And if so, how? In what manner? How do they fit into the ecosystem, the ecological system, the world system of moving creatures? Creatures move around. All creatures. People are creatures. When we move around, when black people move around, hey, man, I got to go here. I got to go there. I mean, I ain't got time to talk to you right now. I got to go somewhere. Go somewhere and do what? That you've got to go. Okay? You can ask yourself that. Where are you going? Well, I got to go over here and see my buddy. See your buddy about what? Now, whatever he's going to see his buddy about is going to be about doing something constructive or non-constructive. And ain't no such thing as in between. That's all you got to remember. When you look at anything, it's no special list. It's just selectivity. You select the things that you can learn the most about things that are going to work for you and not against you.
Yes,
That's
sir.
all it is.
Okay. We have quite a few people listening. I'm going to read this one from, excuse me if I do not get it correct, a pronunciation. Volperbite 3 says this, Mr. Fuller. I'm a mean bastard. I don't care what race, age, gender, religion a person is. Keep their damn problems to themselves, and I'll do the same. Otherwise, I'll be seeking revenge. So what does that make me? White racist?
A black racist, and he said his ambition is to do what?
He says, I'm a mean bastard. I don't care what race, age, gender, religion a person is. Keep their damn problems to themselves, and I'll do the same. Otherwise, I'll be seeking revenge. So what does that make me? A white racist?
A white racist?
Just read it as
Did the person say white racist?
Okay.
Hello.
He says his friends call him Vorp. That's what he's asking. Does that make him a white
Did he
racist?
say a white racist?
He says white racist.
Must be a white person. Is that what the understanding I'm supposed to get?
I cannot say. I just read it as he wrote
as
it, and
Vorp
wrote it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd have to figure out what he. First of all, you start according to the way that I've written the book. Every word counts. So he started off saying he is a what?
I am a mean bastard. That's
okay, right there. I would have to have maybe an hour-long or 2-day-long or 3-week-long discussion on what does he mean by that's what he is. That first thing that he mentioned, mean bastard. What does a mean bastard do? See, I just want to know what you're going to do, not how you feel or how you think. Codification is about the bottom line. Yeah, okay, well, all well and good, be that. But what are you going to do? It's just when, all creatures, when they move, they're fixing to do something. I just want to know what you're going to do. That's what everybody should want to know about anybody else. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, Mr. Fuller. He did say, he answered your question, he said, when you ask, is he a white racist? He said, white racist because I'm following the white society rules.
Following the white society rules. What are those rules? See what I mean? All you have to do is just ask questions because you want the details. The truth is in the details, and clarity is in the details. And an understanding of what to do about anything is in the details. People just use broad generalizations. Mean bastard. I do not know exactly what mean bastard means.
Well, this is what he says to that. He says, mean bastard because I despise people and tell them so. No mercy.
No mercy on people.
That's what he said here.
Oh, okay. No mercy when he does what? See what I mean? He's being very, very vague, even though it sounds like he's going and letting you know everything that there is to know. But that calls for a lot of questions, because we're talking about every minute of the day, wherever he happens to be, being a mean bastard. What does he actually do? Because you can be a mean bastard. I mean, and everybody, hey, appreciates what you're doing and all like that, but you're a mean bastard. I mean, it could be. Or it could be that you go around and everybody that you see, you walk up and punch them in the face. Every person that you see, because you're a mean bastard. See, I don't know what the person means by that. But if that's what that means, I don't think we'd even be talking about this right now.
Well, his definition of white society
after he got to that third person, if mean bastard means everybody he encounters, he punches them in the face. Someone would have put a stop to that long before he ever reported that he was a mean bastard. That's in my opinion. I mean, that's just the way things sometimes work. For the most part, I mean, I'm a mean bastard, and today, everybody I encounter, when I get on that elevator today, I'm going to punch the first person I see right in the face, and the next person, 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 all day long, because I am a mean bastard. Well, I don't think that person is going to make it through the day. That's just my opinion. Without very unfortunate things happening to him or her. That's just the logic. Everything in counter-racist science or in compensatory science or in logic is logic. Logic is logic. Cause and effect. Mean bastard, if that's what it means, but that might not be what he means for the simple reason he's talking about being what he said he is, but I don't know what that means until he goes into details.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody else knows. Some other people who are listening in the audience see, well, do you know what he means? I don't.
Okay. All righty. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to Dante. Dante, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Hi, Mr. Fuller. So I was having a conversation with some friends over the last couple of days, and it was regarding like white supremacists that control the 9 areas of activity, written history, and even time from the year of white Jesus to the seconds of the day. As far as we understand through your logic and my own, they can predict and direct and control everything in the known universe, including us. So, they have everything. So, my question is, the one thing they don't have, and you mentioned to be intelligent or to be smart, is to have a solution for producing justice. And I wonder, because they allow us to do this, do you believe that the one thing that they want is that thing that they don't have, which is to produce justice in the universe? Is that they want us to find a solution that they can't find because, they're kind of an unstoppable oppression machine at this point? I guess, what's your view on that? What do they want when they have everything? And do they want justice?
Oh, well, they want to white supremacists, according to the evidence, wants white supremacy in answer to the question. People have asked me that through the years. What do they want? They say, we want what we got right now, and we want it to continue forever. We don't want this to change. Why? Because it works better than anything else. You have an idea of how anything would work better and make me feel the way that I feel when I work it? And bring it on. Maybe they will say that. I mean, I don't know. But the evidence has shown they're quite satisfied with the way everything is. They are very satisfied with this arrangement. And it's logical, I guess, that they would be. But also, they are satisfied with an evil world. they've become quite comfortable with that, and they made all of their victims comfortable with it. So much so that we embrace it. We embrace all the value systems they have of how to go about mistreating people. We love it. Black people, I mean, the black male, that's what it means to be a man. How can you go around, hey, starting something and mistreat somebody? Get some mess started. Don't try to straighten nothing out the way it ought to be. Just be messy about everything, even when you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we have embraced that without even, we don't even think about it because we've never known nothing else.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Dante, thank you so much for your question. Thank you so much, Dante. Okay. People call in, Mr. Fuller, and or write or whatever they do, which is great. I don't know why somebody would think that they're not worthy, particularly if they want to hog the whole conversation, but they're not. But then when people get into name calling, such as this person that I was reading, I'm not going to call the name that this person just used. But, I know it doesn't bother you. It definitely doesn't bother me. But I just would wonder, and I'm not asking you this, why a person would feel that they would have to resort to something like that, because what that does is just expose what they really are. But anybody can call in and make a statement, and if you get on my chat board, if I have time, I will read that statement. But be careful though. But everybody is worthy to do that. Let's see here. I don't have a name up here. Who's next online here? Somebody is just listening from the 469 area. I don't know if that's Dallas, Texas. Let's see. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll read this one here. Okay, Mr. Fuller. This comes from Gigi, saying this: how do you personally keep from hating them, knowing that is the white supremacists, who and what they are and what they are doing? What kinds of exercises can you suggest for victims to exercise to keep them from hating their psychotic captors?
Understanding. It's just like, if you are familiar with a tiger, and a tiger's been trained to attack rather than nurture, then you don't necessarily hate tigers. I don't hate tigers. I don't hate alligators. But I do say that, well, in order to survive, they need me for food. Well, the white supremacists can survive without me because people are made to have a certain amount of ingenuity where they learn the source of food. They start with that particular thing and the source of a lot of things. They grow on trees or up under the ground or something like that. Corn comes out of the ground. Apples come from trees. People discovered that. So the things that people need to sustain themselves and the way the body is made of people, they can survive and be prosperous without harming anybody. All right? And so that's why the concept of justice is valid. Some people have said, well, justice can never be because you got to have injustice. That's just the way the world is. People got to mistreat people. Otherwise, they can't survive. And that's not true. We've seen plenty of evidence where that's not true. People can cooperate, just like they're doing this virus thing. All right? When everybody's being threatened, people can get out and on the parking lots and hand out food and bring more food and whatnot and try to help the person who falls down. You can do these things rather than wait for the person to fall down and then go over there and stomp on them. That's the white supremacist philosophy. Or nurse them back to health and then stomp on them. You know, I used to see old movies and whatnot of people having fist fights. And even in a saloon fist fight, what would some of the characters do? Knock the guy down, and the guy's lying on the floor now. He's just about out. And they grab him by the collar and struggle to pick him up again so they can knock him down again. Now the guy is already unconscious. But that's the type of white supremacist thinking that dominates the planet. All right? That doing that is fun. I get a lot out of that. That just makes me feel good. That's why I love my guns, you know. I just don't want to sit here and polish up guns all day. I want to go to the window and shoot somebody. All right? Man, just watch them fall down. That's pretty. And black people buy into that. Did you see the way that MF fell? Man, the way he fell off of that horse or the way he fell out of that car.
That's exactly how they talk. That's exactly how they talk.
Yeah. Man, when I popped him, you should have seen the way he was hopping trying to get away, you know. But by the time he turned that corner, man, I hit him. I mean, boy, he turned the flip like you would, I mean, you know. Just as crazy as he can be. The person who does that. But we have been made that way. We weren't born that way. We think that's funny. That's not funny. You are destroying one of the Creator's products. If you look at the way a person is made, all those wires called veins that's in a person's body.
Yes, sir.
All of those blood cells. That is a genius piece of work. When you look at yourself, when I look at my fingers, I make my fingers move. I don't know how I do that. I have no idea of how I make my fingers move. I have no idea of how I pick up a phone and talk. I don't know how I can do that. Simply by telling myself that that's what I'm going to do. I didn't invent that. So when you kill a person, you are killing a great invention that you didn't invent. There are some mothers that will say what? They will say, I brought you into this world, and I can take you out. Well, wait a minute. You didn't even know you were going to get pregnant, lady. That wasn't decided by you. That was decided by something that's completely unknown to you. You might call it the Creator and whatnot, but you don't know how that comes about. What do they call it, folks? They call it the miracle of birth. That body comes out of your body. And you say, well, I knew how to go about getting it. Yes, but you didn't have a guarantee that that's what you were going to get. Okay, where does that come from? Where did you come from? In the beginning, in order to reproduce. You came from somewhere. Do you know the origin of you? People ought to stop and think of how all the things that they are looking at, what we take for granted. A lot of work goes into that. So when you kill a person, you're killing somebody's work. You ought to think about, and what allowed you to do the killing. Think about that. Because just like you kill somebody else, somebody can kill you.
That's true.
Okay.
That's right. We started off this conversation for this first hour speaking about your book. And for those that did not hear that, we got about 3 minutes, Mr. Fuller. I want to turn it back over to your book, how you can get the book, the web page and all that. Take that away, Mr. Fuller.
Go to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And all the information is there for getting the basic book and the word guide. And sometimes people want the original 1984 edition of the updated edition 2016 edition, for reasons which they know best. because the 2016 edition covers just about everything that's in the 1984 edition. But some people say they just a simple thing like they like the format, even though it's a thinner book and it has less in it. But that is covered in the 2016 updated, revised, expanded edition of the basic code book. Now, why do I call it a code book? Because everything that's successful works according to a code. Electrical codes, plumbing codes, fire codes. It means that you've tried to do something over and over again, and every time you do it, it works. And that's why an electrician will go into an office building, say, for example, and go to the circuitry and inspect the wiring and say that this is not up to code. And someone will say, what do you mean not up to code? What has code got to do with my wiring in my building and whatnot? Well, it's not up to code, which means you're going to have a fire in your walls. I mean, because when you get a little electrical surge and whatnot coming through these thin wires, the wires are not going to be able to handle it. And you're going to get sparks, and the sparks will cause a fire, and your building will burn down. So we'll put new wiring in so that will not happen. That can handle the electrical load that's going to come through the wires.
Yes.
And so in trying to correct anything, you need a code, which means every time you do it, it always works. And that's what black people need. See, the white supremacists have a white code. Every time they do it, it works. What they do and what they say, it works. And everybody has a great regard for it, all right, because it's well thought out. Black people have nothing like that. All we have is a bunch of slangs. Slangs are just some slogans and whatnot that make you feel good and do a little hand clapping and a little foot stomping, but it doesn't solve problems. And that's why we're always crying, because we don't have a code, a way to go about doing things in such a way that every time we do it, it works. We keep doing things that we know are not going to work. We're programmed that way. We know it's not going to work before we do it, but we do it anyway. And that's why we're the laughing stock of the world.
Wow. All righty. ProduceJustice.com is where you get the book.
ProduceJustice.com. That's how you get the book.
Now, this is what I'm going to do. Dante, I'm going to get you after our top of the hour station break. Mr. Fuller, finishing out the question by Gigi, simply this. She says, let's see, if you have some suggested exercises, and have you tried any of them, and how effective are them she's addressing in not hating white folks?
So, do I have any suggestions?
Yeah, we got about a minute. Yes. Any suggestions you have
for not dating white folks?
No, for not hating
white folks.
Yes.
Where does hate come from? Hate comes from being frustrated about something you don't understand. And I just laid it out. If you understand white supremacy, everything else falls in place. If you don't understand it, then it's nothing but a system for mistreating people. So that's all. You don't have to hate white people. You just say, we have some corrective things to do. And start correct every day on your job and whatnot. Start asking questions. That's the best way to start correcting anything that needs correcting. That way you don't get an argument, you get conversation when you ask questions. That's how you start. Start asking questions about everything that's being done, and then ask the key question: is this constructive or non-constructive? Say, for example, on your job, I don't know where you work or anything like that, you just ask Miss Graham or whomever it is, or Mr. Jones or Mr. Crawford. Mr. Crawford, this thing that you are proposing, is it constructive or non-constructive?
We
And
got
if
to leave
it's
it right
constructive,
there.
how?
We got to leave it right there,
All
Mr.
right.
Crawford. Okay. You've been listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on ProduceJustice.com. Stay tuned for the second hour, which will begin as I am speaking. Welcome to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, and the phone lines are jumping, call this number, 516-453-9921. That's 516-453-9921. And if you would like to Gmail me, you can at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Now, I probably will not get a chance to read those, but they will be read at some point. But mainly, 516-453-9921, and hit that number 1 button after you have made that call, and I'm told that you will go to the front of the line. And Mr. Moon Pie will make sure that you go to the front of the line. He's one of our fabulous engineers. And I gave him a little shout out just to let him know that I'm looking and listening to him. Okay, this is the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show. You can also call it the CRCS with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Okay, Dante is back. Dante, what is your question?
All right, so this question, I guess, is a little bit more home for me. Mr. Fuller, my question is, how do you cope with the emotional pain and the loneliness of being the primary target of racism, white supremacy as, like, a black man? Like, what do you do to cope? And, like, how, like, I mean, I feel like sometimes logic isn't enough to get through the painful days and get through the struggle.
For some reason, the question seems to be broken up. I don't know what.
Yes, I'm getting that also. Is there something we can do about that? Because Dante sounded like he was broken up, and some parts of Mr. Fuller seems like he's broken up. Can we do something about that? Dante, can you ask that question again, because it was kind of broken, please, sir?
All right, hopefully you can hear me better now. My question is, like, I guess it hits a little more close to home for me, but, like, how do you cope with the emotional pain and the loneliness of being the primary target of the system of racism, white supremacy as a black man? Because I feel like logic isn't enough sometimes to get me through the everyday struggles, you know, and the emotional pain that comes with our situation.
So I'm not picking up any part of the question that because it's broken up. There's just something going on in the wiring or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's
and I'm hearing that from you, Mr. Bobby. It's also the same thing.
Oh, same thing? Okay.
Yeah, same.
Okay. But technicians just informed me that ProduceJustice.com seems like the feed is having a slight problem for today, and they are looking and working on it as we speak. So there's just something going on there that they are trying to identify and then eliminate. You say I'm breaking up also, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, yes, and it seems to be getting worse now.
Yeah.
I don't,
Okay. Well, we'll do the best we can.
We'll do the best we can, but that needs to be corrected.
Yes, it will be. Yeah, it will be.
We haven't been getting this, but we're getting it now.
Yes, it's a little better, but we still need to do better. Okay. As a black man in this system, Dante, how do we deal with it? I mean, how do we, since we are targeted?
I'm saying, like, how do you cope? How do you cope with the emotional pain, Mr. Fuller, and the loneliness of our situation, considering the condition we're in and, like, being the primary targets of racism, white supremacy? Because sometimes I feel like the logic isn't enough for me to get through the struggle and get through the
You
day.
cope with it by understanding what you're dealing with. That's why in the beginning of every program I said, if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. Everything else that you understand will confuse you. So the only reason you can't cope with it is because you don't understand it. That's true of anything that a person can't cope with. You don't understand it. And if you don't understand something, you don't know what to do about it, and that brings about frustration. And then you will despise it and hate it and have all kinds of emotions all over the place because you're not concentrating on understanding what it is you're dealing with. I don't think that I have, any emotions. I have, if I'm in a situation where people start shouting, or if someone calls me the N-word, in a public forum, white people would, 5 or 6 would, if it would happen right this minute, and I would be somewhere. Now, why would that be? And I would not react the way that a lot of other people would react if they called me that. In fact, the more they call me that, the calmer I get. Because that's what I just trained myself. People come around, they say, everybody else gets nervous and whatnot, and they say, well, we got some Klansmen here, and they're going to be shouting the N-word. And when they do, I'm going to get mad, or I'm going to want to kill somebody and all like that. I'm just as calm as I can. I say, bring them on. Bring 1,000 of them in here. All of them shouting to the top of their voice. All right? Because all I'm going to do is watch and see what they're going to do. If all they're going to do is call me the N-word, good luck with that. Good luck with that. They're going to have to do something else other than that, because that's not going to move me at all. Zero. And when they finish, I'll just look at them and say, well, looks like you all ran out of steam. Okay. Have a good day. End of story. If that's all they're going to do. But that comes from what? Understanding what I'm dealing with. That's all. Mm-hmm. There's no difference between Neely Fuller and nobody else. How do you cope with it? Yeah, that's how you cope with anything. Understanding it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And knowing the difference between the cause and effect.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Dante. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And thank you, technicians, because the feed is much, much better.
Absolutely. It sure is.
Dante, I'll tell you what, since it wasn't your fault, I'm going to give you another opportunity to ask a quick question before we move on, if you have another one.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, Dante. Hey, Dante, thanks for calling, man. Appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Fuller, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this gentleman's or this person's name, but I will say that this is the question. This is from the Gmails. It says, Mr. Fuller, please can you explain what you mean by and how you came to conclude that so-called Africans, Asians, Americans, etc., practice justice when you also say that they don't exist?
Absolutely. Because that's what the words, if they're going to mean anything at all, the word America, we'll just start with that one. America. What is America? Does it exist? I hear people making speeches saying we are in the process of becoming Americans, or making America as it should be. Some people say, in retrospect, make America great again. Well, that's implying that at some time in the past it wasn't great, or that it ain't great now, whatever it is. What is America? Well, historically, it's a person who was named Amerigo. And that person was a writer, I understand, from Italy. And he just wrote about a place that was new to him. And people started saying, Oh, you're talking about Amerigo. I mean, those people he wrote about in his journal. He did some traveling, and so Amerigos. You're talking about Amerigos people, and you can call them Americans. I guess that's what you can call them. But they are, those people that Amerigo wrote about and put it in a book that's overseas somewhere. And I understand that's how it got started. So the label stuck. Of the people that Amerigo wrote about, they say Americans. When they anglicize, you might say, the name, rather than call it Amerigo people, they were American people. So what does that mean? What exactly does the word American mean? What does African mean? When you say African, that's a real African. Who are you talking about? The person might say, well, I'm from Egypt. Well, Egypt is an African, so you're an African. Oh, no, wait a minute, I'm an Egyptian. Or you might say, there's an African, now that's a real African. And that person will say, I'm Zulu. Now, you can call me an African and all like that, but I am Zulu. I am Mandingo. Okay, well, what does a Mandingo do? And then the person will tell you, I'm not like everybody else. I'm a Mandingo. There's certain things I do. Or you will talk to a person who's called a Native American. And that person will say, I'm Choctaw. I'm not the same as Algonquin or Sioux or one of the other tribal names, of which there are many, many, many.
Yes.
And you say I am Native American? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay? So what is an American? They say a football player is an All-American. So what does that make the people who are something else, whatever that something else is? A football player is an All-American? So that person means a person who ain't playing football. What kind of American is that? Part American? Part-time American? 5% American? But to put on a football uniform and get a trophy, and you're all American because you play football. See how that word, what does that mean? Asian. What does that mean? One person says that I'm from Indonesia. Another person says, am I Asian? I'm Hindu. And I'm from Calcutta. And that's what I am. Okay? But somebody says I'm also Asian. What does that mean? And what does that have to do with me? I mean, and that guy that just got here from what they call China. I mean, I don't eat the food that he eats and whatnot for the most part. My customs are different and whatnot. But we are Asian. Who said that that's what we are? Who says that's what I am? What does that mean? So in answer to the question, what is an Asian? What is an American? What is an African? I said an Asian, an African, and an American, all one and the same. They are people who practice justice. And since no one practices justice in the system of white supremacy, Asians, Africans, and Americans do not exist. These are just labels that have no definitions at all.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
Okay.
Because, so what are people? They're white people, non-white people, and white supremacists, depending on the context that you choose. And I choose that context. That's what the world is made up of in the system of white supremacy. Because to a white supremacist, I don't care what you are. You're either white or you're non-white. And nothing else matters.
Okay. You're listening to the Counter Racist Coach with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And you can get in contact with the show by calling 516-453-9921. And here's a little caveat. If you push the number 1 button after you make that phone call, I'm told that they will expedite you to the front of the line. So make sure you do that. If I can get this right, is it Ifani? You are on if you have a question. If not, okay. Ifani, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller. I'm sorry.
Give me 1 minute, sir. 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm in an office right now. 1 second.
Okay. Let's see here. That's kind of unusual there. Maybe he's getting himself together. Okay. Okay,
sorry,
go ahead, Ifani.
I'm ready now. Okay, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. My question to you is, as a black man where I work amongst many people of Caucasian descent. I am the only African American male in my department. There are 2 other black people that I work with. So I have no true ability to actually talk to somebody like me, a like-faced person like me. How would you be able to deal with that type of adversity that comes with this situation?
Depends on what the adversity is, and you handle them all the same way. Constructive, non-constructive. That's the main thing I want everybody to understand. Everywhere on the planet, something is either constructive or non-constructive, and you take them event by event. Each and every day, you have to make a decision. All day. If someone is doing something, the something that the person is doing is either constructive or non-constructive. Either you mistreat somebody or you're not mistreating someone. It's just 2 categories. There's nothing in between. That's how you deal with it. In any situation, anywhere on the planet, on a boat, up under the ocean, in outer space, people who are in a spacecraft, they're either going to do something constructive or non-constructive. There's no such thing as in between. It's not complicated. We think that, well, I'm the only black person in the office, and now everything's going to get complicated because I'm the only black person here. Well, you're a majority of one when it comes to what? Constructive, non-constructive. If you're the only person who is looking at the world like that, and if you're the only person that's looking at the world like that, so be it, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so anybody that you talk to, the white people that you talk to, you listen to them. You're courteous all the time. That's how you act. You're always courteous. You don't let anybody be more courteous than you. Anytime, on a job, anyone else. Say, I'm not going to let nobody be more courteous than me. I'm going to be the most courteous person here. Wherever, I'm not, I'm going to measure everybody, and I'm going to speak to it that nobody is more courteous than me. That's code, all right? And so having that out of the way, then you move to the next thing in the same line, and that is constructive, non-constructive. And that's all you do all day long, and put it in the form of a question. You don't make accusations. You don't accuse anybody of doing anything, ever. You ask questions about what is being done, because it all comes down to what's being done or not done. Everything is divided that way. So you just simply say, Mr. Augustus, this thing that you just said that you want done, is it constructive or non-constructive? And then you can go to the next question. Now, this thing that you want done, is anybody going to be mistreated? And is the person that needs help the most going to get the most constructive help? Just those two things. All day long, every day. That's all you got to remember. It's not no 2,000 or 3,000 things you have to remember. Just two. But we can't seem to, to wrap our minds around those two things. Mr. Graham, this thing that you just said needs to be done. Is it going to be constructive or non-constructive? Which means also, is anybody going to be mistreated in the process of doing it? Can you guarantee that nobody's going to be mistreated? And can you guarantee that the person that needs help the most on this project gets the most constructive help? Yes or no? And don't argue about the answer. Just be ready with the next question. This is all you got to remember. In any environment, not just a work environment, anywhere you happen to be on the planet, even among people who don't speak the same language. That's all you really want to know. Are we going to be doing something constructive or non-constructive? Because I don't want to be a part of anything that's non-constructive. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't either. That's what you should tell your supervisors and all like that. Sir, do you want to be a part of anything that's non-constructive? Do you want to mistreat anyone? Or do you want to help the people that need help the most? Yes or no? And if they say, no, I don't want to help the person that needs help the most, well, sir, will you put that in writing so that will be a matter of record? See, people should stand by their work. That's a part of the code. Don't argue. Just ask people to stand by their work, whatever they say. If they think that it's correct to go around cursing people out, then tell them to put that in writing and say that this is the correct way to conduct yourself.
What if they don't put it in writing, but you heard them say this?
Oh, well, you make a note of it, and then later on when people come around, you ask. You ask the people who come around and investigate about the work environment and whatnot. Now, what kind of work environment here do we have here? And you can say at a meeting when everybody's present, you can say, well, what some people can do here is curse everybody out. And I have some notes here that I've taken where people said that that's what they can do, but everybody can't do it. All right? So I have the names of the people here. And if the people who say that this is how things should be done and told me this 6 months ago, will they please stand up, the people here in the room who told me that 6 months ago, because I have their names here on the paper. All right? Just have people stand by their work. Whatever person does, every minute of every day on a job anywhere else, they should be able to tell the world, yes, I did it. Yes, I said it. Or if they made a mistake, they can just simply say, yes, I did it, but that was a mistake. And then you move on. That's the codified manner. See, we don't have a codified manner of doing anything. And
yes,
that
sir.
is our biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a code for every move you make.
All righty.
For every word that you say.
All righty. Was that okay? Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all right. That's
what I wrote the book for.
Yes.
To give some guidance, I guess, in doing that. I try to follow my own code. Why? Because it works. And when I deviate from it, which I sometimes do, I find it doesn't work. All right?
Yes, sir. Okay.
That's what code is about. Every time you do it, it works.
All righty. We have some people that are just listening, but I'm not going to go to them because I don't have your name over here. But I will go to this Gmail in the remaining 5 minutes that I have here. Let's do this. Mr. Fuller, it says, good morning, Mr. Fuller. I have just learned of a documentary called Everything is a Rich Man's Trick that detailed the various intricate plots that came together to assassinate JFK in the Dallas, Texas concept, along with the 9/11 demolition to the trade towers that tricked the public into believing a terrorist attack was the cause of innocent lives taken at the hands of Islamic terrorists. At the end of the documentary, it asks a profound question that I would like you, Mr. Fuller, to address, and that is, what kind of society kills its best men?
Well, first of all, I would have to think about what is the best man, all right? See, words are very important, so I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know what best man means to the person that wrote that. So the people who write these things should explain what they mean. That should have been in that document, whatever it was. The person should have gone on to explain in detail what is the best man. You know, you say you got man, okay. Now, you got a special type of man, the best man. Now, what does a best man do? A best man at a wedding does one thing. A best man in general might do something else. I don't know. So that's what I mean by people shouldn't just use terms and just leave you hanging out there trying to figure out what the terms mean, because that's what I'm trying to do. See, I'm looking at these words. Words are tools. Words are supposed to be exact. Words are supposed to explain everything that you need to know in order to function in the best manner. When people throw words at you and you walk away scratching your head, it was something incorrect about the way those words were handed to you. Or there was something incorrect in the procedure of you trying to perceive that you knew what the person was saying when you didn't. So that calls for what? More and more and more and more of what? Questions. So I don't know how to answer that because I don't know what best man is.
And you haven't seen the documentary either, is that correct?
I haven't seen the documentary, but even if I saw it, and if that's the way it ended, talking about a best man, what is a best man? I mean, you're talking about a whole bunch of ingredients, and now that calls for maybe a 2-day discussion of what constitutes a best man, and nail that down so that you, when you say, hey, here comes the best man, you won't need to be able to look at that person coming down the street, and the person says, okay, now we got men here, we got all kind of men here, but here comes the best man. Well, you should know exactly what that person is going to do and say.
Okay.
That best man.
Okay. This is what we are going to do on the other side of the required break that I'm going to take at the bottom of the hour. We're going to have Ifani back. Ifani back. And then at some point during this period, I'm going to ask you, Mr. Fuller, what is the codified response to the coronavirus, if you will, please, sir, your thoughts.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Or your thoughts on that. I'm going to ask that. A lot of people want to know what Neely Fuller thinks according to the code about this coronavirus, so I will ask that. Okay, bottom of the hour. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the show, 516-453-9921. When you do that, press the number 1 button, and I'm told that you will go to the head of the line. They will ask you for your name so I can properly pronounce it or give it to you and go on from there. Let's see here. Or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Those probably will not be read today, but at some point in up and coming shows, they will be read as I am reading some of these right now. But the main line is 516-453-9921, and you can ask your questions to Mr. Fuller, and be sure that you go to the head of the line. Okay, Ifani is not on there. Is that him? Let me see here. No, I'm looking at 704 as the code here, but okay, it's not on here. But if Ifani calls back, go ahead and send him to the top of the line. Oh, okay,
again.
there he is. Oh, just listening on that one. Okay, all righty. Okay, Mr. Fuller, this is what we're going to do. A lot of people have asked about what is the Mr. Fuller's codified response to the coronavirus, and I said that I would ask that question. So, Mr. Fuller, the people are listening to your suggestions. What do you have, or what say you?
You always stick to the codified procedure in any situation that you're in. And in a situation like this, floods, fires, hurricanes, storms of any kind, earthquakes, you help the person that needs help the most. That's called justice. Guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's why we need a code. We don't get lost. We don't panic and start thinking about, starting some grandiose program that we're completely alien to us, or trying to figure out what to do. You already know. Code means you know what to do in every circumstance. That's what makes code. In every circumstance. So you stick to fundamentals. You always have the intention of guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. And you always have the intention of guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the definition of justice. You never lose sight on that as a goal, the reason for your existence, logically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So, when something like a disease takes place, you go by the best information you can possibly get, but you keep in mind that every situation that you get involved in, help the person who needs help the most. It's not complicated. You're in a parking lot and people need help putting the groceries in their trunk or whatever it is, and they're having problems doing that, and having problems, with the cart that brings the groceries, and you can see where you can help them with that, keep the things from falling off the cart, and you have the strength and the wherewithal. You just help the person right there in front of you. Say, well, suppose the person is white. Yes. Help the person that needs help the most in all of these situations. Why? It's logical, because you need help. You came into the world needing help. And when you leave here, you will need help. Everybody needs help. So keep that word, H-E-L-P, in mind. Always have the correct intentions. That's the first order of business in every situation. And the correct intentions is the guarantee that no one is mistreated, and the guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And don't read anything into it that's not there. Read it into it when it is there. Now, if it turns out that a lot of people have something else devious in mind, which means they're not going to help the person that needs help the most, and or they're going to mistreat someone, then you don't want to be any part of that. As far as you're concerned, guarantee that no one is mistreated. That's the kind of world that we should want in replacing racism or any other kind of ism where people are being mistreated. The key term here is mistreatment. Is anybody being mistreated on a job, on a parking lot, at a meeting? Is anybody being mistreated? Well, nobody's supposed to be mistreated. And as the person that's in here, right before my eyes, 5 people here, all of them need help. Who needs the most help right this minute? Who needs the most help? You're in a situation right now somewhere. If there's 8 people around you, one person needs more help than the other. That's the person you start with and work back until you get to person number 1 who needs the least help. It might start off that you need the most help. So you ask for that help. And if people don't want to give it to you, well, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the procedure, guaranteeing that the person right there in front of you is not mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets that help. A little child there toddling along and whatnot, trying to climb up in the car. The child needs help. Everybody else is in the car. Walk over and pick up the child, the baby, and put it in the car. That's not complicated. The white supremacists make everything so complicated, and black people all over the world walk around scratching their heads about something that all they have to do is just look at what's going on right there in front of them and correct the situation that needs correcting. That's it. And the law of compensation, the compensatory code, says somewhere in the universe, because you were born at one time, that's taken note of. And you might be compensated for that.
You just might be. Okay. Note here from our technicians, they said that there is a connection problem. It's reoccurring. And they are working on it. They can hear you, Mr. Fuller, but it's choppy, and it looks like it's coming from the internet. But they're saying that in a few moments it should be smoothed out. So I don't know how I sound to you if I am choppy, but they are efforting to work it out. Brother Moon Pie, he's on the scene. Working it out, and now Produce Justice is better now. They're able to give me notes as we are on the air, so I can be up to date and inform you and our listeners what's going on. Now, I would take this call from 301, but I don't have a name up, and if I don't get the name, then I will go to the Gmail. I'll give you a second or two if that person wants to give the name or they want to switch me over there. Okay, nope, he's gone. Okay, Mr. Fuller, here's a question for you. It says on page 239 of your word guide, you provide a compensatory definition for the word, and it's in quotations, mistreatment, as actions that result in incorrect harm to persons or creatures. When is harm correct and when is harm incorrect in a universal way? Please provide an example.
And the question is, what now? When is... I didn't get that.
Okay,
what is that?
Wait a minute.
Are you looking at it?
So I can, wait a minute. Let me get this, and then I'll get right here so I can get the question correct to you. It says, wait a minute. See, when is the word mistreatment as actions that result in incorrect harm to a person or persons or creatures? When is harm correct and when is harm incorrect in a universal way? Please provide an example.
Well, when you get a constructive result, everything is constructive and non-constructive. What you're aiming for is a constructive result. Like a doctor, a doctor does brings about some pain, maybe a dentist, for example, but the dentist will inform the person in the dental chair that this is going to hurt a little bit because you have abscess on this tooth. So what I'm going to do, you're going to get some pain for about 5 minutes. I mean, it's really going to hurt what I'm going to do. But after that 5 minutes, you're not going to have any pain at all. That's explaining to the person what's going to happen and preparing the person.
Mm-hmm.
See, now, are you ready for the 5 minutes of pain? Because it's going to really hurt for 5 minutes. That's going to be a long time. I mean, to hurt with intense pain. But once that 5 minutes is up, it's all over, and you're not going to have this again for the rest of your life. All right? So you think about it, and you brace yourself, and you take a deep breath, but you say, okay, here comes the pain. Because that's the way existence on the planet is for most creatures anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You get a little bit of pain, but you get a whole lot of pleasure. For the most part, most people on the planet get more pleasure than they get pain. I mean, so you just measure that, some people say that, I'm in pain all the time. Well, not really, all right?
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of pleasure, too, that you take for granted. Because when you're not feeling this pain, that's when you don't pay any attention to it. But you pay attention to pain. That's all it really is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that kind of answers the question, maybe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then it continues. Also, she says, is it beneficial for the production of justice to, quote, forgive, end of quote, white supremacists for their crime of white supremacy? Is forgiveness for the crime of white supremacy correct treatment?
Well, if a person wants to do that, they can, but I just say correction. I prefer that word, correction. In fact, that is listed in the Codebook as one of the goals. Make everything that's non-correct, correct. Just make it correct, that's all. No matter how long it's been going on around and all like that. I mean, just, hey, you see a situation that needs correcting, correct it if you can. And once you correct it, it's corrected. End of story. It's either correct or it isn't. And just make it correct. You don't have to make a hoopla about it or have a parade about it or cry about it or go into any type of special type of emotion about it. Just correct the situation that needs correcting. The pencil needs sharpening in order to write. Sharpen the pencil and then write. That's it. You can't write with a pencil that doesn't have a lead point that works. Just make it work. Go to the pencil sharpener, sharpen the pencil, come back and write, and if what you intend to put down, that phone number or whatever it is, gets put down on the paper, then it's a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's all everything is. We have to stop making simple things complicated. Look directly at what needs to be done and figure out a way to do it. And if you can't, ask for what? Help from someone that does know. And if the person refuses to help, then go back to the drawing board and try to figure it out yourself. Why? Because that's the only thing you can do until somebody else comes up and you ask them. But you keep on keeping on. You never stop. And you don't despair. It's three things that is a part of the philosophy of the code. And it has to do with something I heard somebody say years ago. Now, this isn't in the code book. And that is, they say if you don't have any money, no friends, and very little sense, the one thing that has paid off, history has shown, is persistence. Just keep on keeping on. Why? Because just to stop, that's not curing anything. You just keep on keeping on.
What were those three things? Money, friends, and what else?
If a person doesn't have any money, if you don't have any money, most people don't, a lot of people don't, no friends, and very little sense.
Okay.
History has shown that just keep on keeping on anyway. Things will happen. Just keep going, the way that you're going once you see that something needs doing. It really needs doing. It's the constructive thing to do. Just keep on keeping on. And there's a old blues song. I've talked about it, not on this program, but on previous programs, but I'm going to reiterate it, by Memphis Slim that I heard in the 1950s. He was a blues singer. And I don't know the exact words to the song or the title to the song, but if I recall correctly, the words, there was a passage in that blues song that went like this. As you go through life, you can't help knowing you can always get help, but only the way you're going. Boom. Drum. Okay? Memphis Slim.
Memphis Slim.
As you go through life, you can't help knowing you can always get help, but only the way you're going. Now, that's kind of been proven. Most people have experienced something like that. You don't know what to do, but you start off with the correct intentions and keep going that way. Or in anything that you set out to do. You say, I want to be an electrical engineer, but you don't know a wire from a pair of pliers, and people might laugh at you and all like that. But you just keep going around telling everybody you would really like to get into electrical engineering. And somebody working in their garage might say, well, I'm a full-time electrical engineer, but I got work to do that I work here in my garage and whatnot. I mean, projects of my own, and you can come around and I can show you a few things. Somebody will eventually do that. That's been proven by many people all down through history.
Persistent.
Yes, persistence. Keep on going, even when, like I said, no friends, no money, people laughing at you. Just keep on going. As you go through life, you can't help knowing you can always get help. You might not get all the help you want or get it when you think you ought to have it, and you might have to do a little crying about it in despair and whatnot, but just keep on going. As you go through life, you can't help knowing. You can't help knowing you can always get help, but only the way you're going. If you're trying to get from San Diego to Walla Walla, Washington, and you ain't got no idea of how to get there, you just keep asking around and whatnot. You just keep trying to get there. You ain't got no money. I got to get to Walla Walla. You're just determined to get there. Next thing you know, you're going to be in Walla Walla. That's going to happen. Why? Because you're this single-minded, you're determined to get there. I mean, it might just come out of nowhere. You were saying, I've been trying to get to Walla Walla for the last 6 years. Every time I try, something happened. I wind up not being able to get there. And the guy who you tell that to, or you wasn't even talking to him, he heard you. He said, I'm on my way to Walla Walla right now. And I need somebody to ride with me. Really. Just, talk to. He said, but I go there all the time. You say, well, when you leaving? In about 15 minutes. You ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready to go. Boom. Just like that. Out of nowhere.
Okay.
That's how things happen. Lots of people have experienced that.
Uh-huh. Okay. Let me do this. I was going to ask you a question about the African continent being larger, but Imani has gone to the front of the line. Imani, go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir. Greetings. I just wanted to know Mr. Fuller's thoughts on COVID-19, better known as the coronavirus. Specifically, is it a quote-unquote man-made concoction that was made up by the usual suspects, white supremacists, or is it something as a course of nature, or both? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Could be. We don't know until we find out. Remember now, black people are prisoners of war. So we're in prison. So just imagine, because I wake up and go to bed every night reminding myself, I am a prisoner of war. Well, sometimes prisoners of war get constructive information. And a lot of times they don't. A lot of times any subject people, any people who are subordinate to an unjust system, they get constructive information, and sometimes they don't. So you get it when you get it. We are completely dependent on our information sources from the masters of the prison, who are the white supremacists of the world, if you're black. So they come on the speakers and speak to the people in the prison yard. And they say what everything is and what it isn't. So we don't know, but you can guess. It could be something that they came up with, that they're going to tailor certain populations, and we will know that when we see them doing it. See, this thing can kind of die off from where it is now. They say we got it under control in the northwestern hemisphere. We got it under control in China, all right, which is where they say it started. And we got it under control in Italy, even though we went through a whole lot of agony to get it under control. But somehow, while we got it under control in all these places where it was really terrible, really, really, really terrible, and it is terrible, somehow, 6 weeks later, when we thought that we had it under world control, it's now rampart all over Africa. And it's a new strain, a brand new strain, that doesn't seem to work anywhere but in Africa. Now, something like that could suddenly show up. And in answer to your question, that could happen. And I'm kind of, I'm not saying I'm holding my breath, because we need to breathe. That's what the coronavirus is all about, stopping you from breathing. Okay? Yes. But but I am observing that, looking at the map of the world, and I say, I just hope that they're not saving that. Saving this virus and being able to show, hey, we didn't have nothing to do with it because we went through this.
Yes.
But somehow the Africans wasn't prepared. They were around there tribal dancing and all like that. So when it hit them, they wasn't prepared. They wasn't even thinking about it. It was nowhere on their radar. So we'll try to help them as best we possibly can, but we don't want to get contaminated all over again with this new strain. But just millions and millions and millions and millions of them are just going to have to die. That's just all it is to it. That could happen, folks. Look for it.
Yes. And since you mentioned this, and it ties into the question I was going to ask about why, according to the topographers, I think that's the way you pronounce it. It's pointed out that the continent of Africa is so large that you could fit almost the entire known continents inside the continent of Africa. I have seen maps that illustrated that point, and I was quite shocked. But people here have made it seem like, the topographers here have made it seem like the United States was greater or equal to that. And in the map that I saw, the United States was a small part and fit within the African kingdom. Are you surprised at that, or did you know that? And by the way, I noticed on a map I saw this morning that most of the African continent is not affected with this coronavirus.
That's what I was talking about a while ago. That's why I say, I just hope. See, because I don't know. Neely Fuller doesn't know. I don't know any more than what everybody else is seeing on television and in the newspapers and whatnot, and the radio programs. So I don't know. But I'm saying, I just hope, because it might be a natural thing. It could be.
And it might not.
And it might not be. See, I don't know. But I do know that if it suddenly hits Africa and people start dying daily by the hundreds of thousands, then I have my suspicions about the usual suspects, the white supremacists.
Yes.
Up to it again. And they made it look good by saying, see, it's not us, because we had it. All right? See, that's the way they do things nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
That's the modern white supremacists. That's how they operate. Yes. If they spread a disease or anything like that, they always start with themselves. See, any type of thing that's happening that shouldn't happen, what the white supremacists do now, the refined white supremacists, they will make sure that it's done in such a way that they have what? Deception. All right?
Yeah.
So they fool everybody by saying, hey, if it's a disease that they have invented in order to tailor the population of non-white people here on this planet, they will spread that disease among themselves. And because they do the math. All right? They'll say, we'll let this run among ourselves, and it'll just be, we'll say that it's white grandmothers. All right? We'll call it the grandmother's disease. And it just seems like it really hit white grandmothers for some strange reason. It's a weird disease. I mean, people over 60 and whatnot, that's why we call it that, the grandmother's disease, and it mostly affects white people, and they are dying, and so that will go on for maybe a couple of years, and then we say, well, we finally got it. We put the cap on it. I mean, we hope that it doesn't erupt in another form anywhere else. But, but next thing you know, the way they'll do it, a year will go by where everything is quiet, then all of a sudden it'll explode all over Brazil and wipe out about 15 million people in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
That's
we got
the way
exactly 45 seconds to go, so give me a little something about your book. 45 seconds.
Go to producejustice.com. That's it. Just go to producejustice.com and everything that you need to know about getting the book. And I hope that you do get it.
Yes. And it is a book for who, Mr. Fuller?
It's a book for non-white people, for victims of racism. And it's really, a lot of the things in it are about just helping people in general, which is the kind of world we want anyway.
Yes.
I want to emphasize that in this particular program right now with this virus going on. Help everybody that you can. You're given strength to help people. Use it to help people. Because you want people to help you. That's the law of compensation, which is the title of the book. Go to producejustice.com.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, all of the callers. Thank you, all the Gmails. You have been listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. and me as your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.